Hi everybody, I'm Bree the Plant Lady.
I'm Abby the Gardener.
And today we are getting started on placing plants in the big new native shrub border. Ta-da! Now we're really just sort of messing around right now, getting things put out generally. I'm doing everything backwards. Abby, I still haven't put it on paper. But I was kind of thinking, if we did it like this, then I can go inside and draft it, and if anything strikes me as wrong, then we can come out and change it. We aren't digging any holes right now. So it's the opposite of what you should do. Actually, I'm being a really bad example. Sometimes you can't help yourself. So you can see it's predominantly deciduous. And my good friend Preston Montague, who's a really talented landscape architect, he and I were having a discussion the other day, and he was just saying the bottom line is the native shrub layer for this part of North Carolina is predominantly deciduous. So that's something you just have to kind of get over. And I still want to find some evergreens. I want to find some Juniperus virginiana. Maybe some more Ilex opaca, maybe some Yopon hollies, all of which are native but hold on to their leaves. There are other options that are better for wet, and the backyard is where it's really wet here, and we're not designing the backyard right now. So we're gonna space what we have, and we'll take you around and give you kind of a general explanation of what it looks like, or what the aim will be, even though it generally just looks like a bunch of sticks right now. This is a very anticlimactic video, I'm sorry. Sometimes that's how it goes. All right, so we've got all the same deciduous azalea. This is Rhododendron viscosum, the swamp azalea. And we're gonna actually put that in the section that has the veggie mix. That'll hold a little more water. So we'll just space them a couple feet apart. And maybe that one, yeah, like that. That's perfect, kind of a ring.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna keep going. We are now at the stage where it's time to plant, but I wanted to make a video first to talk about the planting design and the plant material itself. First of all, I want you to go to the description and click the link that goes to my webpage, because I have put plant descriptions for every single plant that is included in this design as a reference for myself and for you. We got all of these plants primarily from Carolina Native Nursery. Everything in black pots came from Carolina Native. The purple pots are from First Editions, and you can actually find those plants at like Lowe's and Home Depot and garden centers. The purple pots are plants that are cultivated varieties, whereas the black pots, everything is seed-grown species. And in the natives world, that distinction is really important. Now, I am not a strict nativist. I like all plants. To be honest, I don't really care where a plant comes from. I care more about the function of the plant. But because we have this new property, and most of the plants in my existing garden over there are Asian, I thought it would be really great to expand my plant knowledge by including North American native plants, which I don't have a lot of experience with. Now, to that point, last night, as I was making the plant list, I had a complete and utter, near panic attack, you guys, all right? Because I started looking and putting together how big all these plants are gonna get. And I was like, oh my God, what are you doing? You're overplanting, da 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 da. I started letting those wheels turn. However, I am determined that I'm not gonna let those ultimate sizes influence me here, because the goal with this shrub border is to make it so that in just a few years' time, it will be completely filled in. You won't see the ground, we won't have to mulch. And sure, there's always regular maintenance that has to be done, but overall, once these plants are established, they're going to require very little interaction. And that is the ultimate goal by planting these, regionally native plants in this big front yard, full sun, flat, generally wet space. Obviously, what's native here in central North Carolina, Zone 7, isn't necessarily going to work for everybody everywhere, and that's just one of the difficult aspects of gardening. There isn't a one-size-fits-all answer for anybody, because plants are fickle and they're alive, and well, different regions are going to have different plants. So you have to bear with me. I live on the East Coast in a very hot, relatively wet climate. So most of the plants that we are installing here are actually native to wetlands, edges of swamps, and the bottom line is we are on an edge of a swamp where we are gardening here. And so my plant palette is certainly not what you would be growing in Iowa, but that's the point of this discussion. Right now in the native plants world, there's a lot of trying to sort of recreate prairies. And I think that's great, but for those of us in the Southeast, those Midwest or even Northeastern native plants aren't really going to be the solution for our climate. We have to be looking at plants that are more heat tolerant and also more tolerant of the up and down temperatures that we experience in the winter. And to that point, I'm really wanting to focus on a woody plant palette, which is why we have basically an entire landscape of nothing but trees and shrubs. We've got a perennial border, a small perennial border, planted here with all North American natives. But the goal in this big bed is to be a shrub border, not to be flowering perennials where everything is really low to the ground. I want this border basically to grow up tall and make it so that the house actually has some privacy from the street. So the goal here is quite different than what I'd say what the average native plant installation is trying to achieve. Hi everybody, and welcome to my office. I have been working on a functional plan, not a pretty plan, but basically drawn to scale with all the plant names on it so that I would have a reference. And I also want to note, I've been busy getting all this information loaded to my website, breegrows.com. So let me turn the camera around and give you an up-close view of the plan. Now, if you're doing this yourself, this is actually a good way to go about doing it. It doesn't have to be artistic. You do want to note your, directionality. The road is east, the backyard is west. And I drew this at a really large scale, so 1 inch equals 5 feet. And that gave me the room to be able to include all of the plant names on the plan. So if we start here, you can see this corner has lots of native azaleas with a hybrid Magnolia grandiflora, a large planting of Viburnum prunifolium, and Rhododendron arborescens, Ilex verticillata surrounding a beech tree. As we go on the inner side, we've got Sporobolus and Schizocarium as sort of grassy ground covers, with more native azaleas and Lindera, one of my favorite spring bloomers, and a fabulous fall blooming witch hazel. In this corner, we've got oak leaf hydrangea, actually flanked with Itea virginica, and then more ornamental grasses, including panicum, switchgrass. Through the middle here, more large clumps of native azaleas and buttonbush, Cephalanthus. We've got pinkster azaleas, and then perennial rudbeckia, pink muhlygrass, and oak leaf hydrangea. So as we pan to the other side, I did a similar planting along the edges using ornamental grasses. Same thing, oak leaf hydrangea flanked with Itea virginica. And then I used Asclepias incarnata, the native milkweed. Along the front, we've got Viburnum rufidulum, Spirea tomentosa, Rudbeckia American goldrush, pink muley along this edge, and Phloxgena, going down to Solidago rugosa, with more Itea, tiger eye sumac, and a big planting of Viburnum dentatum. In the center here, we've got another hybrid magnolia. This is Colossus, with Spirea alba, Clethra alnifolia, Lindera, and Fothergilla, all in mass. Along the edge here, we've got Rhododendron atlanticum, a big grouping of asters, and more native rhododendron. Here is Rhododendron viscosum. Through the middle here, I've got a large Ilex opaca, and then more buttonbush, Cephalanthus, more Fothergilla, and ultimately more Lindera, and a maple whose information I need to get from my friend who works at the Morton Arboretum. I'm really excited for all of this to come together, and I can't wait to continue to share updates. But again, here is a very not necessarily beautiful plan, but a very functional plan. And I'm definitely going to keep this in my records because this will act as a resource for many, many years to come. Well, everyone, I hope this video will serve some purpose for you, have some value. You know, I'd intended on having a really elaborate drawing, and in the end, I actually think what I've come up with is exactly what I need. I don't really need it to be in color and be, you know, something that you would hang on the wall. What I need is a base map that I will be able to refer to over and over again so that I will get to really know the names of all these plants and better understand their growing habits. And I know I didn't cover their growing habits very explicitly in this video. I'd really encourage you to visit my website, breegrows.com, and click on the Carolina Garden House link, which is in the description, so that you can get a better idea of all these plants' growing habits. The video will be really long if I went through each one. Basically, no, all of these plants are meant for full sun. They're very tolerant of wet feet, which is the condition that we have here on this property in Fuquay-Varina, North Carolina. All hardy to zone 7, all East Coast native, which of course is the main goal of this project. So for very specific information, check out my website where I have put extensive plant descriptions for every single species. And I look forward to sharing updates as we get all of this stuff planted. So be sure to subscribe and tune in every day this week. We will have videos to will give you that great sense of instant gratification. Thanks so much for watching, everybody.